Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry. I'm sorry because I probably named this video something extremely ridiculous. And I would like to stop my apology right there, because I'm going to make it up to you. You are about to witness one of the most incredible chess games you have ever seen in your life. In fact, for some of you, this might be the best chess game you have ever seen in your life. That's all I have to say. This game happened a couple of days ago here in May 2024. It happened at the Sharjah Masters, a very, very strong chess tournament. And I actually made a video about this same tournament a couple of days ago, and I misspoke in that video, and I sounded like an idiot. I said the Sharjah Masters is also played in Dubai. And what I meant to say is the Sharjah Masters is also played in the United Arab Emirates, because right now there is a series of tournaments going on in the United Arab Emirates, the UAE. This game was sensational. Sit back, relax. I highly recommend watching this game. Sometimes you put on the video and you just, run errands around the house. I would recommend watching this game. Just give me like 15, 20 minutes. This thing is going to brighten your day. Okay? Our two players involved are Vladimir Fedoseev, formerly representing Russia, now Slovenia, and Salem Salem, the pride and joy of chess in UAE. I mean, he is the Arabic Falcon. He is incredibly strong, always brings very enterprising and interesting chess. And when you got a banger like this, sometimes when you have two people who play each other or fight each other and they have matching complicated styles, you get something very boring. Not today. Vladimir opened up with d4, and you don't have to look very far in this game to get excitement, because after knight f6, c4, g6, already Salem is playing something that is not very popular nowadays. Nowadays, people with black are too scared to put the bishop on g7 and enter either the King's Indian defense with d6 or the Grunfeld with d5. At the high level of chess, the meta is for black to play simple, solid chess with knight f6, e6, looking for Queen's Gambit decline type of setups. g6 is already very interesting. Fedoseev doesn't wait. He plays h4. I mean, this is a warning shot. Like, this is, I'm watching a lot of the NHL right now. Hockey playoffs, extremely exciting. Go Rangers, barely beat the Hurricanes. We'll see if we can make a run to the Stanley Cup. In hockey, teams send each other messages. Like in baseball, I know, very American. If you throw the ball at someone, you're going to get in trouble. In hockey, you could slam someone into the boards and laugh at their family members sitting there, and it's kind of accepted. This is a warning shot being sent to Salem, like, if you just keep playing your opening, I'm going to go h5, we're going to open things up over here, and then we're going to destroy you. So now Salem has to make some sort of decision, and in this position, he opts for d6. Not the most common move order, but it is what it is. Now we go knight c3 back. So now we have forced Salem to play a King's Indian defense. We don't know what Salem wanted to play. Maybe Salem was going to play a Grunfeld, and by going here, we have now forced him to play a King's Indian defense, knight c3, and now, instead of just developing naturally with bishop g7, he plays knight bd7, okay? And now he's preparing to push a pawn into the center like that. This is one of many, many, many options in this opening. Here, Fedoseev, instead of playing e4, which is the most common move, he plays queen c2, and as early as the 5th move of the game, 5 moves have been played. There are a grand total of 0 games in the master level database. Obviously, this is very rare. This is a pretty rare move order, but the way that Fedoseev chooses to play this with queen c2, nobody plays like this. Most people play e4 very quickly, and black puts a pawn on e5 instead of c5. So the way this has been played resembles other openings, but nobody has ever played this specific way. That's very hard in 5 moves to leave known territory to this extent. So now, instead of just developing normally, again, bishop to g7 and castles, resembling other positions, Salem plays a6. And he has a very clear idea. The idea of a6, I mean, he can't play b5 because white can, and now not only can he not play b5, white completely controls b5. Plays b5. Plays b5 anyway. Why? Because this concept of losing a pawn on the queen side comes straight out of the Benko Gambit. in the Benko Gambit, black plays b5 and gives up 2 pawns and gets one of them back, but he gives them up. Now, again, if you look at the structure, it's not exactly the same, but as you can see there, my arrows indicate you are going to be taking 2 pawns. So b5. So Salem plays this in a way that resembles another opening. He's gambiting a pawn. He's playing a gambit. If you want an interesting and exciting game, you got to take some risk. CB. He doesn't take back. He plays bishop g7. He's allowing Fedoseev to attack him with h5. He's also allowing Fedoseev to take him on i6. Now, Fedoseev here plays b8. He does, in fact, oblige. He says, look, this is probably the best move. Now, the crazy part is, it's not. This very natural capture on a6 is incorrect. Because the way White has played this, White does not play h4 in the Benko Gambit. In the Benko Gambit, in this position, yes, you can take both pawns, and then let's say Black plays, you know, I'm playing completely normal stuff. White in the Benko Gambit does not waste time on queen c2 and h4. So the inclusion of those two moves compared to the game that we have now is wrong, and that is why the computer doesn't like it for White. And now after castles, Vladimir here plays h5. He decides, I'm committed. I mean, I played h4. Like, why would I play h4 if I'm not going to play h5? He just gives up the pawn completely. Completely gives away the pawn. Now, if you take it with the g-pawn, you're a really bad chess player. Because you double your pawns, you create just easy weaknesses. But knight h5 is the real question. And now the question is, will he sacrifice the rook? It's good for the memes, but not in this particular position. I mean, you don't, there's no follow-up. You don't even get the queen to take the pawn because you move the queen over here. So the idea of h5 is really simple. He's just giving up a pawn to have the open rook on the h-file. But when Fedoseev plays h4, h5, he's not going to castle. I mean, and his next move is really going to prove he's not going to castle because in this position, he plays g4. He plays g4, attacking the knight again and forcing the knight backwards. So at this point, Salem, what Salem is doing is he's covering up and he's trying to move out of the way. He's rolling with the punches. He's trying, right? And Fedoseev's just got him up against the ropes. He's digging the hook. He's going up top. He's throwing the uppercut. He's looking for the knockout. Look at this g5, marching him down the board. And the idea of g4, g5 is to take squares away. But at the same time, the other idea would be to play f4, bring the queen over, and my man Fedoseev would look like Leonardo da Vinci with the way he has created this contraption. And I mean, he's just, boom, he's just going down the h-file. But Salem plays knight to h5. The idea of knight h5 is very straightforward, right? Block the rook. But what's the plan after bishop to e2? You can't move the knight anymore. And now you're going to lose that knight, and you're going to get mated. Well, Salem had the whole thing worked out. Now he goes bishop a6. And now he basically tells White, look, remember how Gotham says in the Benko Gambit you're going to trade the light-scored bishops and that's going to be good? I don't know how he knew I was going to make a video about this game or what I would say. But the point is, in the Benko, frequently these bishops trade for each other. If you go and take the knight, which is what Fedoseev did in this game, yes, you get an attack. But Black has the light-scored bishop. Fedoseev is playing very aggressively. If Fedoseev does not checkmate the Arabic Falcon, he is going to have long-term problems and complications with the position. Plays f4. The position's still relatively in the balance. And you got to remember, this over here, the engine is the PhD student in a classroom of toddlers. All right? Its evaluation doesn't mean much, because if you give White a couple of moves, White will generate a very powerful attack. But Salem is an experienced veteran grandmaster, and he knows when you are being attacked on the flank, you should strike back in the center, unless it like hangs a queen. Strike back in the center, opening up some pieces, e-file looking nice, very tough position, but Fedoseev brings another piece to the party. He does not take opening up his opponent's position. He prefers to be taken and get a knight into the game, and then maybe trade this dark squared bishop, and then maybe get the rook and the knight over here. So, knight e2. Now, Salem brings the heavy hitter. Thinks for 12 minutes, plays queen e8 with a very clear idea to open up the position. You may be out wondering, why didn't he go queen e7? I'm wondering the same. I think he didn't like that it was too close to the white position. He thought maybe the queen could become a problem. We have queen to e8. Very tense moment now in this game. Apparently, this also serves as a kind of a tactical defense of this pawn. So rook h5, there is f5, and a lot of counterplay sent back white's way. But as you see from the engine, it thinks this is fine. Fedosseev must have really panicked after queen e8 because he proceeds to take. He takes on e6, and he opens up the position with fe6 and says, you know what? What is stopping me going on my own attack with knight to g3? And my friends, from this point forward, you are going to witness absolute greatness. Take a look at the position one final time. This is the last time the position will look kind of normal, although it's obviously not. It's very complicated, very dynamic. And now, in this position, with this incoming, an attack incoming on the kingside, the Arabic falcon takes flight. Knight to e5. The engine needs to consider this move, by the way. It's like still thinking about all of the complexity. So, knight to e5 is a full giveaway of a piece. The idea is that after you take it, black takes with the bishop. And now there is an attack here. There is an attack here. White has to play the only move, which is queen to g2. Now Salem plays rook b8. So he has a sniper bishop, sniper rook, sniper rook. Queen is ready to get into the action as well as d5, opening the position. The white king is not particularly safe, but Fedosseev, best move on the board, knight h5. Thought for 10 minutes. He's ready with knight into f6. I'm going to turn off this eval bar so nothing gets spoiled. Knight takes on h5. There is an attack brewing on the black position as well. Queen to g6. Okay? Very tense moment in this game. Many options for white. You cannot just barrel in because the queen is pinning the pawn to the queen, and rook f6 is a simple move that wins a knight. So, since you can't do that, you play bishop to e3. It's a very dangerous position, and I don't blame him, but everything is defended. Like, this is defended by that. This defends that. This defends that. So black doesn't really have a way in. Which is why, in this position, Salem plays d5. It's all he has remaining. If white takes on d5, there is bishop c3, bc3, rook b1, and somehow the king is completely mated. King d2 is queen d3 mate, rook b1, queen b1, king d2, you lose your queen, you lose all your pieces. So it's actually incredibly dangerous here. One innocent pawn capture, this diagonal opens up, and you get absolutely butchered. You get absolutely butchered here. All right? I mean, it is insane, this position for white. And Fedosseev finds the best move. He castles. He castles into all of this. Why? Because chess is all about dynamics. He's up a piece. Don't forget about that. If he's able to survive this, he's just going to be up a piece, which is why this move is a massive question mark. Now what? He's forked. This is as good as it's going to get, and this is probably what Salem saw from a distance. From a distance, like all the way back here, he went, what about knight e5, take, queen g2, and then we go to this line where, I'm going to get d5, d4, I'm going to win a piece back, I'm going to be happy. Yeah, but there's a very good resource here for white, and actually Fedosseev kind of finds it. You just chuck the piece, you go knight f6 check. You chuck the piece, you go knight f6 check. Knight f6 is the idea. Black has the option of which piece to take. He probably should take the bishop, by the way. It's probably better to take the bishop, but it's very hard to fault Mr. Salem Saleh for taking on c3 because he was attacking the king. I mean, you can't really blame the guy, right? So he took. And in this position as well, white can go for stuff like queen h3. Now, the best line is like after de3, you go for various knight f6 stuff. But dc3 is played. He plays b3. And actually, believe it or not, white is still better. White still has a little bit of an advantage. The position is in the balance, but even though white's king is very restricted, and I mean very, very, very restricted. I mean bishop pressuring, pawn is close to promoting, all this stuff. It's actually white who can simplify the game now. There is one moment he can play knight f6 check. And that move forces a series of exchanges. It forces a series of trades. Bishop f6, pawn f6. Now, I am very curious. I have not spoken to Fedosseev. Why, in this position, he opted to go queen to h3 instead, okay? It might have been he missed his opponent's next move, but I think he thought queen h3 is just winning. He probably looked at queen h3, king h8, because the threat was knight f6 check. You still play knight f6. This is now mate, by the way. That's straight up checkmate. Bishop f6, pawn f6, you can't take. You're winning. It's a winning position. Queen e4, bishop h6, bishop g7. Like, I think Fedosseev went here and thought, the game's over, because I'm just going to go knight f6 next. And I completely open up the position, and I oil up the black king. And that's it. Like, that's what's going to, you know, it's just, that's it. It's game over. I'm just getting in. But now Salem turned everything around. Turns out that queen h3 was inaccurate. And the best move after bishop d3 was, in fact, going for knight f6. And maybe Fedosseev just didn't think this was winning. He just thought, this is not a winning position, but it was. The problem with queen h3 is the fact that in this position, my man Salem Saleh can play the move takes b3, sacrificing the rook. Rook takes b3. Oh my goodness. What even is this move? What are we even doing? What we're doing is we're getting to the white king first. Rook b1 is mate. The only move is to take the rook. And when you take the rook, black plays rook a8. Rook a8. And now the threat is mate. Again, you gave up a rook. You bring the second rook. You threaten a checkmate. The game is over. But once again, the move knight to f6 is very important here. The point is, after bishop f6, queen e6, maybe white can survive. Queen f7, pawn f6. Maybe Fedosseev saw king h8 and he was like, this is over. He's not completely wrong, but he has this completely ridiculous move, queen c8 check. And after rook g7, he will lose, but it might be a very long endgame. He probably saw this and was like, this is losing anyway. Which is why he went king to d1. As you can see, king to d1 is completely losing. Why? King d1 is a very simple idea. If rook a1, you go bishop c1. Right? Well, sometimes in chess, it's not the first mistake that hurts you, it's the second mistake. Rook takes b3, opened up, rook a8, king d1, and Salem Saleh. What he did next was so incredible. He sacrificed the queen. The knight, which could have moved to go to f6 at any moment, he sacrifices the queen. The queen is sacrificed. And the reason for this, the reason that you deflect the piece all the way up, is so that the queen no longer protects any of the third rank. Queen takes h5, rook a1 check, bishop c. Well, it's not bishop f4, because then actually black gets mated. Salem puts the finishing touch on this game and sacrifices his other rook. Rook takes c1, and white resigns because of king c1, bishop f4, king d1, c2, king e1, c1 queen, king f2, queen e3, king g2, queen g3 is checkmate. Mate. A forced sequence of moves beginning with the supernatural rook takes b3, punctuated by the supernatural queen takes h5, and ending the game by giving up the other rook. He sacrificed both rooks and his queen in a sequence of 4 moves. And he wins the game with 2 bishops and a pawn. Mikhail Tal, may he rest in peace, is looking down at this game and smiling and smoking a cigarette in heaven. That's what he's doing. This is... We don't get stuff like this in the modern era. This is absolutely crazy. What a game. And once again, Fedoseev probably should have just gone for that position with knight f6 check, but this is chess. And sometimes there is a margin for error, and sometimes that margin of error is exploited. And my God, I don't even know what to say. I hope you enjoyed this game. Get out of here.